Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Amplify with Adam. Today we have Rich and Carey here from Simply Machining. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. This is actually our first 2-for-1 special, so I'm excited to have you guys both here.
Well, you're welcome. We're glad to be here today.
Awesome. Well, Rich, Carey, give us a little introductions into yourselves and Simply Machining.
Okay, my name's Rich, and I go back to the early 1970s when I entered this trade. Carey, he can speak for himself, but he joined with me in 2018 when we took on Xometry, started working with them.
That's awesome.
I've just been learning a few tricks of the trade from him that he's learned over the years, and hoping to apply that to myself and gain my experience.
I think this is actually a really interesting kind of case study for like what we see a lot of times in the manufacturing industry. The community is so strong in passing on knowledge to the next generation and folks getting into it. So I love that, Carey, that you're learning from Rich. Now, Rich, you said 1970s and then Carey joined in 2018. There's a little bit of a gap between those two. How far back does Simply Machining go, and kind of were you into the manufacturing space before you got started in Simply Machining?
Yes, we started with Xometry and Simply Machining basically about the same time. We had joined another platform similar to Xometry, which was a disaster. Xometry turned out to be pretty good, but the other one was a disaster. And I might touch on that a little later, what to look at. But prior to that, I owned RT Industries, and we were based out of Ohio at the time, and then we moved down here, and in 2018 we started Xometry.
That's awesome. So, what was RT Industries? What were you guys kind of focused on at that point? I mean, were you always? I see you guys specialize in like small parts machining. Was that your focus with RT, or did you recently get into that?
RT Industries was really, we started into doing diamond polishing for injection molds. And we started that actually part-time, and then we went into that full-time, and we specialized in that at first, and then we moved into investment casting molds and die cast work, and we still did some repair work there, but we got into automotive trim fixtures. And automotive trim fixtures, we faced into that pretty heavily because we had a very good customer there, and we began to phase out of the investment casting. We were involved with a lot of military designs at that point, and the reason we moved out of them was because we were richly quoting thousands of parts on the molds and that, and then it got down to where we were only quoting 35 and 45 parts, and we had to go down to Florida for the quoting process, and it just got top heavy with not much return. So we stayed into we moved pretty heavily into the automotive trim fixture, and that was a very nice line of work.
That's awesome. Now, do you guys still see, or is Simply Machining, is it still, do you still have some of the automotive trimming, or have you guys kind of diversified as you've changed focus and have come on with Zomtree?
What we've noticed over time is that in this day and age, this is my feeling, is that you need to highly specialize because the market is so competitive now, and to be able to make money, you have to specialize highly in it. So we have pretty much narrowed it down to small parts aluminum machining, so that we really have the tooling basically mostly for aluminum. And so we don't have to have extra stuff for, cutting stainless and things like that. We've done a lot of that in the past, but we try to hone in very, very tightly in that area. And we find out we've been very successful in that.
Not long production runs, sort of 10, 15 parts, not really much more quantity than that. Seems to be working quite a bit, pretty good for us.
That's awesome. And how do you guys, it sounds like you've found your niche, right? Is most of it like word of mouth for attracting the right customers, or how do you guys kind of pick and choose the customers that are coming to you, or attract the right ones?
The way I pick them is excuse me one minute. The way
that's good. That's great. That's great background, right? We're in the shop, so it's very natural.
we've had various people contact us over advertising for us, and I don't usually go that route. I try to pursue people that I would like to do business with, because being a small shop, you don't have a lot of time to deal with people, phone calls and things like that. You need to deal more in manufacturing aspects. So I basically keep track of all the contacts I've made through the years that are based at different organizations, and I get a feel for who's looking for work. And that sometimes on LinkedIn, you'll get a request to look at something, and generally we get a little more than what we can really handle. So we try to pick up what we really like and what we fit good with. And then the other ones, they might be just a little outside of our area of expertise that we would like to specialize in. So we don't pick up those companies.
Well, that's a good problem to have more work
Yes.
than you can take on. So now, Cary, you just joined in 2018. Did you have experience in the manufacturing space before then, or are you kind of fresh and learning from Rich as you go?
For this part of manufacturing, yes, I'm learning from Rich. I was a mechanic in a production facility, not production like this or manufacturing like this, and I kind of came in and I'm learning from him and helping him out with some of the other stuff around the top too.
That's awesome. Now, so what's funny is something I normally ask the folks that are joining the show is if you were going to pass along, one piece of advice to someone that was interested in getting into the space, what would it be? Well, you've been in it for 3 years now with him, but what's some advice that Rich has passed on to you as you've been learning the trade in the shop?
I mean, really, it's always trying to improve your process to figure out a better way to do it. Don't get stuck in one way of doing things, because there may be a better way of doing it that'll save time, and saving time ultimately earns you more money.
Yeah. Time is money in the shop. So that's
yeah.
good stuff. Now,
Yeah.
One thing you guys were touching on kind of before the interview just started was you joined Zomtree in 2018, and you said that it required kind of a process change based on what you were doing before and what you're doing after, and that interests me. So what did that look like as far as how did things change in the shop when you joined?
The big change was when we were cutting molds for the investment casting. You're basically just setting up a block and you're cutting a mold. And yes, it is complex as far as figuring in the shrink and all that you have to figure in for the mold. But in a sense, it's very simplified, because you're cutting square blocks and they're doweled together, and then you're putting the gates in, and everything is pretty standardized process. When we got into Xometry, we're realizing there's all these parts that you have to figure out how to hold while you're machining different aspects of it. So it opened up a whole new area of expertise, which intrigues me, because I like puzzles, how to figure stuff out like that. So I would sometimes pick harder jobs just to figure out how to do it efficiently.
Sometimes fixturing one way may not be the most efficient way to fixture the next job. So you have to keep your mind open to different ways of part holding.
Yeah.
With your parts.
And have you guys enjoyed that kind of constant learning process? Has it been something that you've been able to, expand your knowledge and like you said, kind of figure out the puzzles?
What's amazed me, Adam, is that, me being in it this long, you think you know a lot of stuff, but then Cary will come out and look at something, and in just a couple minutes, he'll say, well, you could do it this way. And I thought, I never thought of that. So you have to really keep your mind open to input from people that you think maybe aren't as well learned as what you are, because he has put in a lot of input like that on various little things. I think that's pretty interesting what he says. Let's try that.
Then on the flip side, I'm beating my head against the wall because I do some, and he comes over and goes, why don't you do it this way? Because of his experience. And I'm like, well, that just makes complete sense. Why didn't I? So I have to be open to taking advice from the person with more experience too.
Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful. And it's, like I said, it's really indicative of the manufacturing community at large, right? A lot of folks, they tackle different projects in different angles, but they're also all willing to share their knowledge and talk through it in a lot of online forums and locally, right? Like people personally. So I think it's so cool to see it interplay, right here. So now when we look at kind of the future for Simply Machining, What are some things that kind of excite you guys as far as, maybe like new technologies or expanding capabilities within the shop? Is there anything that you guys are looking at in the future that you really draws your eye?
We always look at stuff. In fact, Carey and I are always trading back and forth. Have you thought about this? One area, having worked in laser work quite a bit in times past, I would like to look into a small laser that is able to handle small parts in small quantity. Because normally a laser wants to set up with a big 5x10 sheet at once and cut a multitude of parts. So we like to try to fit into those areas where people are wanting low quantity.
Mm-hmm.
We would also like to look into what I call very small machining with the small machining centers where you're running high speed spindles and you're maybe running down to very small diameter end mills, 10, 15 thousandths diameter end mills. I see that area as very good also that we would like to get into. For the moment, I don't see too much more than that fits us real good. And we take it sort of we take it a process like that we look into. Oh, we would also like to get into turning small quantity pieces.
Yeah.
Having programmed turning centers for years, there's most people want a lights out run where they set the machine up and they go out or on vacation, go do something else, and they've made $1 million by the time they get back. But that is not the real world that we see. I see a real need for onesie twosies on turning centers. So we are in the process of looking for a small turning center that would fit, we feel that would fit in really nice too.
Now, when you say it's a process for you guys, is it more so like, you're looking at job boards on Xometry, or you're talking to your customers and being like, man, that's some work that we could take. How are you identifying some of those things that would bring you more work?
What I'm tending to look at is more Xometry because, to be honest with you, I've done a lot of quoting through the years on jobs, and in the industry, if you can land about 3% of what you quote, that's good. And with Xometry, I'll be honest, I've gotten lazy. They do all my quoting for me. Now, all I have to do is figure out, can I make money on this job? So I work more on the end of trying to figure out, can I make money on this job? Mm-hmm. And I really have gotten way away from quoting. So
that really helped doing that. What can we do to speed up, make this process more efficient instead of just
right?
Yeah, that's helped us streamline our process and made us more efficient too.
Mm-hmm.
So we're more interested, I think, in hitting a little heavier into Xometry than we are expanding outside, because to be honest with you, we get a lot more interesting work. There's work outside our area that doesn't fit us that we can turn down. When we're quoting other people, a lot of times they will throw work at you that you really can't fit real good, but you have to take it to stay with them.
Right.
And so Xometry has a lot of advantages in that area.
Well, that's really interesting. And I love the technology that you guys are talking about, and also finding that niche and specializing in it. I think that's so important. Now, Carey passed along some of your advice, but Rich, is there anything else that, as far as if there's someone else that's kind of looking to get into the space, is there anything that you would, a piece of advice that you would pass along to someone that's considering either starting their own, small shop or just getting into the space as a machinist or technician?
I think the most important thing is you have to love this work as if it's a hobby, because it is so detail oriented. You have to like the details to it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you have to realize, like I have with Carey, that I have to admit each day that I really know nothing. I have to be totally open to all kinds of ideas and really look at them seriously. I think the next thing is, maybe I err a little bit too much on the cautious side. We pay cash for everything. Mm-hmm. While we're saving up for the next part of machining we'd like to go into, we save money up and we take our time and look at the stuff. We look at the market and everything. What I would say to anybody new starting out is try to not become heavily in debt as you develop your company.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing would probably be is software and machinery are very important. there are machines out there that are very well made and do heavy machining, but it's very hard to find support when you want them repaired. So my advice would be to find a machine that has excellent service on any repair you need. My advice on software would be to find a software that does 90% of what you want it to. And the reason I say that is some softwares are way too heavy and you have to go through too much to get your part machined. You know, for Xometry, we want a 3D software that's very simple to use, and we want to be able to program things very efficiently with feature recognition and things like that. So software and the machine you choose, the service you get on that machine are very, very important.
I love that piece about software, how some can be over-engineered almost, and it can become a hindrance, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
It's great.
I come from a background in one of the early companies that I worked in was debugging software and being beta site for software companies. So I got to know different platforms, and I worked with a lot of other people that were in business, so we're exploring different software platforms, and I began to see all the problem areas. Now, our software isn't perfect, but it does 99% of what we do, and it is very fast, and we have excellent support. So that is a thing, somebody coming in new, the other mistake people make is they will go to a cheap software company that they can get for free or something. And what they're doing is just throwing dollars out when they get that software, because they get little glitches and then they want to know how to do this, how to do that, and they end up wasting too much time. So you definitely want a good software that's glitch free.
No, I think that's smart. So it's threading the needle, right? It's not spending too much on top of the line that's for things that you don't need, but also, you know, spending money on what you need and investing in your shop and making sure that you know, you have the right tools available to you. Well, guys, man, this was a phenomenal conversation, and I so enjoyed you guys taking a little time to join us today. Really, really appreciated being able to get a little time with you.
Of course.
You're
Anytime.
welcome.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you. And join us next week for another episode of Amplify with Adam. Rich, Carey, thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.